It's baffled scholars for 2 millennia. It is a puzzle made of multi-dimensional elements, an enigma with roots that reach back to the dawning of time, perhaps before. Daniel explained part of it. Ezekiel and Isaiah had glimpses into it. John saw it all for the time of the end. That time is now. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert on a journey that spans the course of history, from Eden to Mount Hermon, from Hermon to Babel, from Babel to Rome, from Rome to the cross, and from there to us. Biblical prophecy is coming true before your eyes, and to understand it, you must discern the times both then and now. It's time to unravel the threads of this all-encompassing prophetic paradox. It's time to unravel Revelation.
The beasts of Daniel's vision. Welcome to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and in case you're wondering why we're in Daniel again, when the name of the show is Unraveling Revelation, this isn't only about the book of Revelation. It's about Revelation from Genesis all the way to the end of the book of Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see is it's all about chaos. You start in Genesis 1 with this enemy that you see in Genesis 1:2, and the earth became void and without form, and the Spirit hovered over
The deep. Yes.
the deep,
Yes.
which is another name for chaos.
Yeah, it is really remarkable when you realize that the deep, the Hebrew word tahom, is just the Hebrew form of the Sumerian word Tiamat, which is the ancient chaos dragon. And this is a story that was in every ancient Mesopotamian religion, from Sumer to Canaan to Greece, even as far away as the Norse pantheon. There are myths of a warrior god who had to defeat chaos, represented by a serpent or a dragon, usually with multiple heads.
Yes.
Which is prophetically significant because it ties ancient Sumer to the end times.
Yes, it does. And there's this lie that is spun. You've probably heard the Latin phrase ordo ab chao. It means order out of chaos. The lie is that you have to tear everything apart. You have to break all the rules and create anarchy, which, by the way, means without ruler.
Yes.
So have no ruler, and then the new order would come in with a new ruler. We're going to see that in Revelation 6. We're going to come back to that after here in a few minutes. But the idea that chaos is the original rebel,
Yep.
this dragon that is in charge of all of the other evils that happen later on. But in the very end of the book of Revelation, what do we find? There's a new heaven and a new earth, and
The sea is no more.
the sea is
Chaos.
Yam.
It represents Yam, which is
Which
a
is the-
representation of this chaos monster,
exactly.
chaos dragon.
It is the chaos monster, is no more.
Yeah. And what we found, and this is something that we'll be working on for a book for later this year, but I incorporated it into the presentation for the True Legends Conference. And again, this was shared research between the two of us. So even though I was the one who stood in front of the camera, Sharon gets shared credit for because without we have a synergy that comes out of just
It's
throwing
this
ideas back and forth.
It's that the Lord just sort of,
But
tied
what-
our brains together.
But the thing that we discovered, which I thought was just mind-blowing, and this is kind of how I concluded the presentation, along with the stunning aerial drone footage from Aaron Lipkin of this 3/4 of a mile long serpent-shaped ridge or mound. It's like huge. I mean, the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio is 1/4 of a mile long and about 3 feet high and about 4 feet wide or so forth. This is 200
it's a
feet
baby.
wide. It's
baby
200 feet
compared to this.
It
one.
is. It's like an earthworm compared to this serpent.
Yeah.
3/4 of a mile long, 20 to 25 feet high, and 200 feet wide, and covered with megalithic tombs that
Yes.
are at least 5,000 years old.
Yes.
The scholar who excavated it believes it was even older, 5,500, 6,000 years old.
It's right there by Gilgal Rephaim,
Yes.
the Wheel of the Giants,
And
in the area of Bashan, which
Bashan.
means place of the serpent.
Exactly. And this helps make sense of Psalm 68, which talked about, and Psalm 68 kind of recounts the history of God leading his people to victory from Mount Sinai into Canaan. Verse 7, O God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, Selah, the earth quaked, the heavens poured down rain before God, the one of Sinai, before God, the God of Israel. But then you go down to verse 15, and you get this interesting connection between Bashan, and it connects Bashan and chaos in what looks like an end times prophecy. O mountain of God, mountain of Bashan, O many-peaked mountain, mountain of Bashan. Well, God's mountain is not Mount Hermon, which is what's referred to here, the mountain in Bashan.
Which
That's,
has
of course,
many
Sinai.
peaks.
Yes. Hermon is just the tallest of a series of mountains in the anti-Lebanon mountains. Why do you look with hatred, O many-peaked mountain, at the mount that God desired for his abode? That's Zion. Yes, where Yahweh will dwell forever. The chariots of God are twice 10,000, thousands upon thousands. The Lord is among them. Sinai is now in the sanctuary. That's a little bit of a difficult translation, but the New English translation renders it this way: the Lord comes from Sinai in holy splendor, which makes more sense.
Yes.
You ascended on high, leading a host of captives in your train, and receiving gifts among men, even among the rebellious. In other words, this describes a military operation in the spirit realm against this mountain that was sacred to El, the creator god of the Canaanites, the mountain where the Watchers descended and decided to corrupt humanity, and this mountain that's in plain sight, because it's only 30 miles away from this huge serpent-shaped ridge covered with megalithic tombs.
That whole area
In Bashan.
along the Dead Sea transform, it's
Yes.
so active.
Continue at verse 19. Blessed be the Lord who daily bears us up. Now this is transitioning from history into prophecy in Psalm 68. And I've never heard Psalm 68 described this way, but when you connect Bashan and this serpent ridge and Bashan with the chaos dragon, which we learned during our research was the name of the seven-headed chaos dragon that was defeated in ancient Sumer by the warrior god Ninurta.
And those who have read the book of Revelation already know that a seven-headed dragon is coming.
Exactly. In fact, what I thought was stunning is when you realize that, and some of the artistic depictions of Ninurta fighting this dragon from 2600 BC, and we've showed this on the program before, one of the heads has suffered a mortal wound.
Yes.
Yeah. Blessed be the Lord who daily bears us up. God is our salvation. Our God is a God of salvation, and to Yahweh the Lord belong deliverances from death. Now, death in Hebrew is Maveth, which is the Hebrew equivalent of Mot, the Canaanite god of death.
Which is also Thanatos.
Thanatos, right. So, brings deliverances
That's the
from
fourth
death.
rider, by the way.
Yes, and that's why that's significant. God will strike the heads, plural, the heads of his enemies, the hairy crown of him who walks in his guilty ways. Remembering, of course, that this chaos monster has multiple heads. The Lord said, I will bring them back from Bashan. I will bring them back from the depths of the sea, from the depths of Yam.
The chaos dragon.
Right, but as scholar Dr. Nicholas Wyatt of the University of Edinburgh wrote, this verse could also be rendered, I will bring them back, I will bring back from Bashan Yam.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's actually saying he brings back the entity.
Right. In other words, Yam, Leviathan, Rahab, chaos,
Place of the serpent.
place of the serpent, connected. And Psalm 68, I will bring them back from Bashan.
Boom. Mic drop.
Exactly. This is a prophecy of the defeat of death and chaos right there in Bashan.
Oh my gosh. That is so, we're going to come up in the book of Revelation, chapter 13. We're going to get to this beast that rises up out of the sea. And it's going to connect to that, but also to Daniel 7. And that's where we are today.
Yeah. Well, Daniel 7 is really fascinating. And again, scholars have connected this vision of Daniel to this chaos kampf, this struggle against the chaos monster.
And by the way, if you're keeping track and noticing that we've still not finished Revelation 6, trust me, we're getting back there. We're just trying to sort of flesh out a lot of things for
Right.
you so that when we go in and we talk about chaos and order, you'll know why we're talking about it.
So, Daniel 7, beginning at verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. Now, Belshazzar was actually the regent. His father, Nabonidus, who was the last king of Babylon, was actually the king. He was Chaldean. they weren't really Babylonian. Nabonidus had gone off to a desert oasis called Tema, which was a sanctuary for the moon god, who was Nabonidus' favorite deity. He was trying to replace Marduk at the head of the pantheon in Babylon. That's a whole other story. But anyway, he spent 10 years at Tema instead of in Babylon, which really made the priests of Marduk mad, by the way, because he wasn't there to perform the ritual duties of the king.
Well, exactly. And when it ends up that Belshazzar's feast is interrupted, I'm sure that the priests of Marduk thought, okay, this is because of the way you've dissed Marduk.
Yes. And there are some scholars who actually think that the chief god of the Persians, Ahura Mazda, was actually Marduk by a different name. And so the priests of Babylon, the priests of Marduk, may have opened the gates to Babylon to Cyrus to let them in.
And just remember, all of that really was orchestrated
Yes.
by Yahweh.
Absolutely. Yeah, the feast that Belshazzar was holding, where they brought out the temple service and were serving wine, that was a feast for the moon god, Sin. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you read that in my book, Bad Moon Rising.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was timed, too, to that fall festival.
Yeah.
Coincided with the Feast of Tabernacles, by the way. Anyway.
Did it really?
It did, yes.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, they were holding this drunken feast as part of the Akitu festival for the moon god Sin, coinciding with, it was the 15th of Tishri, 16th of Tishri, which was it was like the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot.
Oh my goodness, how very interesting.
So, yeah, God is like, Yahweh's like, we're not doing that.
No.
It was the last night of Babylon as a free nation. So, Babylon destroyed. Boom. Daniel chapter 7. So, yeah, we'll get to that someday. Daniel 5 is really fascinating stuff when you realize exactly how the timing
Eventually,
timed
we're
out.
going to cover most of the book of Daniel because it's just chock full of stuff. And I think I believe it's one of the reasons that higher critics
Yes.
like to come in and say, no, the book of Daniel isn't really a prophet. It's either written much later or it's just a fairy tale.
Yeah, which is fascinating. Last week we talked about Sir Robert Anderson and his book about the coming prince, in which he showed how Daniel nailed it to the day, or rather the prophecy was given to Daniel to nail the arrival of Jesus, the triumphal entry to the day.
Gosh. It's in his book, The Coming Prince, by the way.
Which you can find online, available for free because it's in public domain. We're trying to talk Tom Horn into reprinting it now because it's just an amazing
I would
book.
like for him to reprint a collection of all of Anderson's books because you've got The Unfulfilled Prophecies, which is written in the First World War.
Yeah.
So he's referring to things going on then. A lot of people were thinking was the time that Christ was going to come back any minute. But also he's got Daniel in the Critics' Den,
yes,
which is awesome.
Which, yes, Sir Robert definitely thought that the book of Daniel was key to understanding that the Bible was true and literally the Word of God.
Yes.
And he didn't mince words. Sir Robert was, he had served as an intelligence officer and he was in charge of criminal investigations for Scotland Yard during the time of the Ripper murders. So Sir Robert knew, he was a very intelligent man and he did not mince words. So yeah, we're really enjoying.
Imagine that he was Irish. Talk about getting your Irish up.
Or as he said, an anglicized Irishman of Scottish descent. But, anyway, we will get to Daniel chapter 7 straight ahead. The beasts that Daniel saw when unraveling Revelation continues.
NASA, Donald Trump, and a cosmic cover-up of end times proportions. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the largest giveaway of the year, the Project Wormwood Grand Giveaway. When you order Dr. Thomas Horn's new book, The Wormwood Prophecy, from the Skywatch TV store, you'll also receive on DVD the entire 4-part Skywatch TV series on the Wormwood Prophecy, featuring Dr. Thomas Horn and Derek and Sharon Gilbert. But we're just getting started. You'll also receive the never-before-released Best of Defender Publishing ebook collection on data disc, featuring 70 of the most information-packed best-selling books in Defender history. These full-length works are in popular ebook formats, so you can read them on EPUB, PDF, Kindle, and other handheld electronic devices. Valued at over $700 all by itself. Yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. This is the largest giveaway of the year and will be available only while supplies last, so don't delay. The Project Wormwood Grand Giveaway, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.
Welcome back to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and we want to remind you that we have an app that you can download and get all of this content, and you'll just skip all of those, ads that you get on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
And you can also get access to all of the stories that Tom Horn posts at the website.
He's been adding some original content. He's got a series now called The Gates of Enoch.
Which
is coinciding. Tom Horn, Defender Publishing, has published the new book by Dr. Michael Heiser called A Reader's Companion to Enoch.
Yes.
So watch for those programs. Those are our broadcast shows beginning, actually this week. And you'll find the first one at the Skywatch TV app. But Tom has also included some original articles about that, and those are published through the website. But of course, anything that goes to the website goes directly to the mobile app.
And I always use the app to watch the content and read the stories because it's a nice, simple interface.
Yes. So it's a free download for iOS devices, Android devices, and Amazon Kindle Fire tablets if you got one of those. And we've got links to the app stores at skywatchtv.com in the top menu bar.
That is so true. So back to Daniel 7.
Daniel, fascinating stuff. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions of his head as he lay in his bed. Then he wrote down the dream and told the sum of the matter. S-U-M, sum of the matter. So we're talking about math. And
the whole thing, yes.
Yeah. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea.
Now, isn't that interesting? The four winds of heaven stirring up the great sea, Yam.
Yeah,
I assume that it's Yam.
Yeah, let's see. The great sea, of course, would be the Mediterranean, probably a reference
directly.
Yes, but
Y-A-M, Yam.
Yeah. And four great beasts.
The four winds, Ruach.
Spirits.
Yes. The Ruach Shamayim.
And we see in Revelation that there are angels holding back.
That hold back the four winds.
Right.
And I think that tells us that maybe some of the older ideas of what's behind our material world, maybe there's more merit to it than we've given them.
Yeah. Verse 3, and four great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. And then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. Now, this scholars will generally identify as the kingdom of Babylon.
Yes. In fact, the symbol of the kingdom of Babylon you'll often see is a lion it's like a griffin, except it's a lion body.
Right.
Sort of like the cherubim.
Right. Well, that's really interesting because, again, referring back to Dr. Nicholas Wyatt, who's a scholar emeritus from University of Edinburgh, he argues that the root word behind seraphim, seraph, is not the Hebrew word meaning burning, so burning ones,
right,
but a homonym from Egyptian. It's an Egyptian loanword, he believes, which means griffin.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That essentially cherubim.
Yes. So you essentially a winged lion.
Yes.
Like the Sphinx.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, interesting.
Huh.
So the wings were plucked off and it was humbled, in a sense.
Well, that does happen to Nebuchadnezzar.
It does.
Now, this is in Belshazzar's, so this is after
quite
Nebuchadnezzar.
a long time later, yes.
But essentially, something happens to the kingdom.
Right. And by the way, just to give you an idea, the time frame we're talking about here, this would be about 50 years difference between Nebuchadnezzar and the time of Nabonidus and Belshazzar.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd have to double check the numbers, but I think that's about right. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, arise, devour much flesh.
Now, I've always read that this bear is actually the Persian Empire.
Yes, and the combined Medo-Persian Empire. There are some liberal scholars who want to make it just the Medes so they can, avoid getting to Rome with the Fourth Empire. But the Medes were never that dominant.
No.
And the Medes had actually come to power even during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. But when the Persians and Medes basically combined forces, they were
unstoppable.
Unstoppable. And it was, in the sense, like a bear. They overwhelmed their enemies with superior strength and force. And
They didn't necessarily move quickly the way we see in the next beast,
Right.
but they moved steadily, and they would eventually move right over you.
Yes, and it was believed that the 3 ribs represented their 3 great military conquests over Babylon, Egypt, and then Lydia, which was the kingdom of
It's in Asia Minor.
Croesus. Yes.
Yes.
You've heard the expression "rich as Croesus." He actually went to one of the oracles of Apollo and was given an oracle in which he said the upcoming battle against Cyrus and the Persians, the Medes and Persians, would result in the destruction of a great empire. And Croesus naturally assumed that it was Cyrus who would be destroyed, when in fact it was the Lydians. Yeah. So that was the end for Croesus. And after this I looked, and behold, another like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
This one's pretty easy. Leopard moves very quickly, very stealthily. This is Alexander.
Yes, who in the span of 12 years, between the ages of 20 and 32, conquered the better part of the known world. I mean, at that time, he didn't go west towards Rome. He went east and conquered Asia Minor, the Levant, Egypt, got as far as India.
Yes.
And in fact, the successor kingdoms, and this is why there were 4 heads on this beast, because when Alexander died after a drunken party in Babylon at the age of 32, his kingdom was divided up between 4 of his generals. And that resulted in the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt, the Seleucids in most of the Middle East. You had then 2 smaller kingdoms, one in Asia Minor and then one in Greece. Basically, the Seleucid and the Egyptian, the Ptolemaic.
Those are the 2 that you really hear a lot about. I think that's in Daniel 11.
Yeah.
We get this whole story. Then the king of the north went down to the king of the south, and daughter of the king of the south married you get all of this story. But it is detailed, prophetic information of things that really did happen to the letter.
And this was one of the things that Sir Robert Anderson addresses in his book, Daniel and the Critics' Den, that it's so precise.
Yes, exactly.
It was like it was written after the fact, except that when you look at when the Septuagint was translated,
Exactly.
it was prior to the events that he prophesied.
Yes, and praise God, the Lord inspired that translation from Hebrew into Greek.
Yes.
Well, in this case, Aramaic into Greek.
Right. So now we're up to verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things.
Yeah, this sounds like the Roman Empire, doesn't it?
It truly is. This is where scholars will also connect with the little horn speaking great things, because we see it in more detail later that it was speaking blasphemies, that this connects to the chaos Kampf of the myth of Typhon, who challenged the gods, challenged Zeus for dominance, but even reached under the stars before Zeus was finally able to subdue him. And so we see that connection with the myth of Daniel, or the story that Daniel, not the myth, the vision that Daniel was given.
Yes.
And also John, who drew on that vision in Revelation. The same thing, the connection between this conflict between God, the Creator, and chaos, Leviathan.
Yes, and it comes out that the Roman Empire is the last one. It all has to do with the 70 weeks and the fact that Jerusalem would be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles, which you see in Luke. It is a reference to this timeline, this judgment of the Lord, because the Jewish people refused to follow him. They went after other gods. They would not give the land its Shemitah. It would not let it rest every
Right.
seventh year. So for that and many other sins, he said, he warned them over and over and over and over and over again. And finally he said, that's it. I'm going to kick you out. And when you finally do come back, you're not going to actually possess the land. You're going to be under the dominion of Gentiles until the time of the end. Now, this same image of kingdom after kingdom after kingdom is in Daniel 2. And starting with verse 31, because Daniel finally interprets this dream. The kings had a dream. Nebuchadnezzar's had a dream, and no one knows what he dreamt. He said, if you can tell me the dream, then I'll believe your interpretation. And if you can't, then I'm going to kill all of you.
Right.
So Daniel is told, you're going to die and all your friends. So he says, look, everybody pray for me. And the Lord gave him this insight. So this is it. You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of this image was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle of and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain that filled the whole earth. This is that same order of kingdoms. You've got the golden kingdom, which he's told is Nebuchadnezzar. You've got the next, the chest and arms of silver. This is the Medo-Persian Empire.
Right.
The middle and thighs of bronze. That's the Greek Empire. And then you get to the legs of iron, the soldiers that were marching, and they just would not relent. The Roman kingdom, which eventually would become the modern world of the West.
That's right. And that's one of the things that we're arguing in a book that we're working on right now, that we are essentially the descendants of Rome here in what our high school teachers would call Western Civ.
Yeah.
The philosophy, the culture, the art, the political system, the laws really derive from Greece and Rome, which were under the influence, the dominion of Zeus, Jupiter, the storm god, Baal, Satan. That's us in the Western world. We may call ourselves a Christian nation, but really, we Christians are behind enemy lines.
Yes, we are.
And when you start seeing the influence of these pagan small g gods in the Bible, you see and realize that they are influential and they are called out in end times prophecy as well. It makes the Bible come alive, and it makes mythology
It
of
does.
the ancient world come alive as well. Well, thank you for watching. This is Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV.